Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and today I have a question relating to an anime that is one of my favorite all-time anime series, Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. And this is kind of going to be broadly, ranging over the entirety of the Ghost in the Shell franchise, which consists of a couple movies, the anime series. It also goes all the way back to the original mangas and stuff like that. And of course, there have been novelizations and so forth. And so my question basically is, because one of my all-time favorite characters is Major Motoko Kusanagi. And I'm wondering, in its many varied incarnations, can Ghost in the Shell exist without this character? She's very much the face of Ghost in the Shell, if you will. Soon coming after that would be like Bato, her sort of right-hand man, and maybe Togasa after that, as well as Chief Aramaki. And I mean, these are recognizable characters if you're familiar with them. And, as we've seen in like the original movie, of course, she was a main part of that. With the anime series, she's definitely a main part of that. But then you have Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, which is the second film, and she's largely absent from that. She's left Section 9, and, she sort of guest spots. Now, with the mangas, I've read all three of the Dark Horse reprints recently, and I noted that, for the most part, the entire secondary one man-machine interface, basically you have a Motoko-type character, and Kusanagi is mentioned, but you're following around what is supposed to be a composite consciousness, Motoko Aramaki. And we get the idea that the original Kusanagi might be a little bit in there, but it's not really focusing on any of that. And we do see Chief Aramaki and Bato sort of vaguely in that story. It's very non-Section 9 oriented, whereas the very first Ghost in the Shell book, that was all about Section 9. A lot of that was what they adapted to the film and stuff like that. My favorite would have to be the third one that came out, which was supposed to be sort of the missing chapter in between, which was a human error processor. And this is made up of a bunch of short stories, sort of, broken up into two chapters per story, except for the last one. And with the exception of one little guest shot of the Major showing up in the background, sort of, or interfering, if you will, with a Section 9 investigation that is being headed up by Bato. For the most part, it's down to the rest of the team. The Major is largely absent. And it got me really thinking about that. We've seen her in the background. We've seen her in the periphery in certain stories. Could Section 9, could Ghost in the Shell exist without the Major character as a result? Because I think the other characters are fleshed out well enough for those who are familiar with Ghost in the Shell that they can hold their own. They can hold the story on their own. Aramaki, Bato, Togasa, Ishikawa, all of these characters, they have distinct personalities. And I think, whereas the Major is definitely an integral role depending on what chapter of Ghost in the Shell you're kind of essentially looking at, I think, for me personally, it could exist without her. I'd prefer that it didn't. I'd prefer that she still remains a large chunk of the Ghost in the Shell framework. And we see many times over that her character eventually wants to move on and wants to do something else, pursue another line or another way of living. And so I'm basically thinking, yes, Ghost in the Shell could exist without Motoko Kusanagi, but as I say, I like it better when she's in the mix. So I leave it to you guys. What would you say? Would you say you could handle Ghost in the Shell without the Major, or is she a necessary part of Ghost in the Shell? And you can tell me your opinions in the comments below, as usual. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for me, so I'll catch you all later. Peace.